Well, have I got a story for you? Yesterday, I went up to Lassen Park for the next episode of SNRF Quest. I also, before I went into the park, I spent the morning meeting with the folks from Rogue Detection Teams, which is what the bulk of this video is going to consist of, is my interview with Heath and Jen from Rogue Detection Teams. They are in the park this month doing canine detection of Sierra Nevada red fox scat, and we had a great conversation about Sierra Nevada red foxes, about what canine detection teams do, and what their data will result in. Very cool conversation, and hopefully will be educational for anybody watching who's interested in knowing more from a biologist perspective about these foxes. So had a great conversation with them, went into the park, recorded the usual trip to the cameras, set up a new trail camera, and came home to find out that my GoPro flipped out. Well, actually, the memory card in my GoPro, I think, is corrupted, and none of that footage was salvageable. I did, I have the program, I did all the things to try to recover that footage, and basically I think I could recover it. It would take me about 2 days and about, just too much time to deal with. It's just not worth it. So I thought I would just recap real quick for you. I did not get a fox on any camera. Remember, I had 3 cameras up there. Sorry, there's a bee attacking me. I have 2 camera traps and 1 trail cam. Last episode, I removed a trail cam and took it with me when I went up out of the non-wilderness into the wilderness area. I didn't wind up setting that up again. I took that one back in with me, and I did set it up this time. There was a interesting sort of hole in the rocks, cave, kind of, potential shelter kind of a place that I bumped into a couple trips ago. I set a camera up on that, and there's one clip of that actually on my phone because the GoPro was being weird before I left. So I'll show you what that looks like while I'm talking here. But I put a camera on this hole in the rocks, which is kind of exciting. Checked my trail cam. There was nothing exciting on that. Golden mantled ground squirrels galore. Both camera traps were functioning well. One had a lot more triggers than the other, and I turned the sensitivity down. I did get a cool picture of a pine marten on the second camera, which was exciting. Fun to get that species again on the cameras. A whole bunch of squirrels, which I found out, by the way, talking to Heath and Jen, that is the primary dietary source or food for the Sierra Nevada red foxes in the southern population, is golden mantled ground squirrels. So I assume it's the same here. So getting them all the time on my cameras is probably a good thing. But that's pretty much the recap on SNRF Quest. I put new batteries in everything. I adjusted triggers. Everything's working great. No fox. So we're set for another few weeks. And I did get another cool picture of a bat. Got those bats flying around. Nothing else really to speak of on the cameras other than squirrels and the usual triggers of wind and insects and that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is just turn this episode into my interview with Jen and Heath from Rogue Detection Teams. I also need to add that there is traffic noise in this video. It's frustrating when I got home and listened to the recording. I do have like a shotgun mic on the camera that's directional, and I thought it would make up for the fact that we were sitting right along Highway 36 at the Lassen National Park headquarters. So you got some trucks going by. There was construction happening. There's logging happening. So apologies for the noise. I did the noise reduction stuff, but it's like frustrating. You can hear us. It's not too irritating, but did want to apologize for that. hopefully you can get over that and listen to the conversation, because what these guys are doing and what they are talking about is important stuff, and it's exciting to kind of hear it straight from them and to get a bigger picture of the conservation of this species and what goes into it. So here we go. Enjoy. Ignore it now, though. So this is Jennifer and Heath, and they are part of, right, the rogue detection teams, which is where I want to start asking questions, because is this it's an organization. Is it a loosely affiliated group of people, or is it a small team? How does it work?
We are a small program, so we're a unit.
Based in?
We're technically based in Washington State, but a lot of our bounders, which is what we call our wildlife canine handlers, they can live in different areas. So Grace, she lives in California, and we have another bounder, Juno, who lives in Minnesota.
Okay.
But we do have a headquarters in Washington where most of our staff live.
Okay.
Collectively, and that's where our dogs live too.
All the dogs?
All the dogs, and this is where it kind of gets funny, all the dogs except the personal working dogs of some of our other bounders. So we have a mixture of the dogs that we adopt to do this work, and then a smaller portion of dogs who already had their people.
And these are like working dogs, right? Like they're not pets,
No. I mean, it's a tough word because our dogs are everything to us. They're our family, they're our hearts, they come everywhere with us. But in terms of the work we do, they are working dogs, and as such we have to treat them in a manner that supports their ability to do.
Right. So like if I see you in the park and come up and start rubbing on the dog, you're like cringing.
Well, and I would have to say, excuse me, please stay back. My dog's working. We're doing an important job. And usually that's a way to open up a conversation with people, because like, what do you mean working dog? So it's both good and bad, but I think a lot of people still want to be like, well, I just want to say hi. And I'm like, well, my dog might not want to say hi.
So let's go there then. Why dogs?
Dogs, yes, have amazing noses, and they're also incredible for the relationships that they can form with humans, and vice versa. But the dogs that we work with they have a very specific drive, and they love to play fetch. And this is the overarching thing that they just want to do all day long. And frequently these dogs don't make ideal pets because they don't make that personal connection that people really want with their dog. They want, their dog to like look at them adoringly, and wherever they go, they're just like, I love you. But these particular dogs sometimes can't make that connection because they're just single-mindedly obsessed with playing ball. And what's interesting though is that when we bring these dogs on, when we give them this outlet, when they get to play ball in exchange for finding data, you do see that side come out of them. They are incredibly kind and want to make connection with humans too, and it's just providing them that outlet. And so that's the dog that we look for. So yes, dogs love to sniff, and we get that all the time, like, oh, my dog loves to sniff too. I'm like, well, yes, it's part of how they see the world. I mean, they take so much in with their nose that we will never know the half of it. But how we then pair that with locating data in the wild is typically with the ball. That being said, though, we do have some dogs who are also treat motivated. So it's a similar concept. So
you have to know the dog and what's going to get them to get out there sniffing.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are like, well, my dog loves treats too, but do they want to hike off trail for 20 kilometers day after day after day? Do they love it enough that that's what they like? Will go out of their way if they smell that one smell to get that one chance to play ball. I mean, those are the dogs that we look for.
Yeah.
And they often end up on euthanasia lists, which is really sad. So that's the other part of our mission, side part, is finding these dogs that otherwise wouldn't have a home or an outlet.
Cool. So Sierra Nevada Red Foxes, you've done work with the southern population for how long? I
think the first year was 2018 in the years. We did do some work with in Oregon in 2016.
It wasn't like 2017 was when that first trail cam shot, like they were like, oh man, these foxes are here in like the Sonora Pass. It was right around then, I think.
I think so, and and this is when like experts like Ben and others would be good to chat with. But I also feel like there was a roadkill that someone found, and they're like, oh my gosh, the species is still here. Because what's really sad is that they were heavily trapped out of Yosemite National Park before they realized that this is an endemic native species. I mean, that was in the 70s.
Thought it was an invasive.
Well, they just thought not invasive, maybe, but maybe pest species too. Because foxes have a bad rap. Which is part of why I think your work is so amazing, because you are highlighting how special they are and unique.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about them so I got my wolf photo, and that story kind of talks about. And then I was kind of putting it out there, like, what else should I try for? And a few different people mentioned Sierra Nevada red fox. I was like, what's that? I didn't know anything about it. So I started looking into it and realized
they're
fairly close to home for me and incredibly rare. And the more I learned about them, the more I thought, man, these are really cool animals. Like, so you guys have been with the southern population. This is your first time at Lassen.
Well, yes and no. Heath and my first time. Detection dogs were utilized in 2008.
Okay.
And that was with a program that we were actually with back. It was University of Washington Conservation Canines.
Okay.
It was different handlers, and they were not provided permission to survey in the wilderness areas, and it's kind of just all of like the parking areas and not in the caribou. So it was a pretty limited effort to search for scat, which is what the dogs sniff for.
Right.
And you can only find so much when you're kind of hemmed in by.
What changed to get you guys access to the wilderness?
I think many, many, many years. So when this method first started 20-some years ago.
Well, let's pause right there, because what's the method? Just for people that are,
well, it's
so you're sniffing for scat.
It's the detection dog method. We like to say detection team, because you can't have the dog without the handler. And what it is pairing a high drive working dog, like the dogs we adopt, with a field scientist, their canine handler. So we're also biologists and ecologists, and we work alongside the dogs to detect various data. And this can be anything from a live animal, so think like invasive iguana, to nests, so sea turtle nests, to floating whale scat on the ocean, to we've done caterpillar frass, which is caterpillar poop, so tinier than pepper flakes, to viruses in plants, and then to scats. So there's a plethora of information that dogs can help us detect. So the dogs are locating, and then you're taking samples, and that's the whole. And then we, depending on if we're collecting a physical sample, we'll send it to a genetic lab. And so we're also have to be intimately paired with a genetic lab who's going to process the data. Because our location data is only as good as what comes out of, learning about, what species is this, what individual is it, what sex is it, what are they eating. So it seems like such a bizarre niche for a biologist, dog handler. Like, how did you guys land here? Just like I think about the path that must have been to get to this point. We're getting off topic again, but I know there's so many fun spots. Okay, you should start with where you started.
Everybody that's in the beginning, it was just random. Like, none of us really knew what this was or what we were getting into, and we actually generally came into it for another reason. Like, it was a summer job. We weren't even part of the dog part of it, and then we meet the dogs, or they meet us, and you're kind of just stuck. Like, it's just happened. You're bonded with them, and they give you this trust, and you can't let go of it. And then you start, like I was a wildlife biologist prior to this, and we trap and we put collars on and tattoos and take blood samples and do all the normal stuff to get data. And then I started on working with conservation canines and saw that through scat we were able to get a lot of that information without ever coming in contact with the species.
It's less invasive to the animal.
It's way less invasive. But you're also, when you're working alongside the dogs, you're learning so much more than just picking up poop. Like you're seeing other signs of the animal, and the dogs, smelling where they've been or what's been going on, and you really just start to take in so much more that it became it's almost crossing over to like a naturalist job, except you're not interacting with the public like a naturalist would. But it was just amazing. It was this freedom to be out in the woods, to learn, to explore, and not have to really harm anything or bother them. So it was amazing. It still is. So this is my 25th year.
Wow.
And I would have never. I didn't have dogs growing up. I would have never thought this is what I would be doing.
Not a dog person until you were, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And on top of that, like Jennifer mentioned, the dogs are rescues. So you're seeing an individual that's come in that it has kind of been given up on. Like, rescues are fantastic and shelters that do amazing work. But there's just some dogs they can't adopt out. It might not be safe. The dog may just be too crazy. Like a lot of our dogs will eat through a couch to get to a 10 spot, or tear your curtains off, or shred the carpet, or whatever. And a number of the dogs that we have now have been adopted out and returned, and they just don't know what to do with them. As Jennifer mentioned, in some cases those dogs may end up getting euthanized because there's no other options. So we're bringing in these dogs that have kind of been forgotten about. They don't have a lot of trust necessarily associated with that. They kind of just look hopeless when they arrive. And then as you start working with them and they start to kind of learn and see what the game is, which is their job, but don't tell them that.
Right. Don't tell them that.
Yeah. This confidence comes back. Their physique, like mentally you'll see them change, but you also see a physical change where they're just more confident and happy, and they just look like a different dog. And that, I think, is just a huge part of it, is being there for them and giving them this opportunity.
Yeah. Let me think about how to ask this question. With the foxes in Lassen, we know there's a small population. There's speculation on how many there might be. What is the potential for what your work in this next week or so? You'll come back with scat samples. You'll be able to do an estimate, or you'll send this off to Ben Sachs, probably UC Davis, and he'll come up with what, like a rough population number, diet information, and all that. But I'm curious about numbers. What will this do for an estimate of the population in the Lassen area?
Well, thankfully, this is a 2-year effort. So this will be our first year, and the data that we collect this year and then the next year, I think, will help determine a lot of different things. There's a lot of questions, and I think so little is known that sometimes we may not even know the questions that these scats would help answer. But obviously the most hopeful one is, how many about. Like
maybe there's more out there than we know about.
Exactly. And the work that Dr. Sachs does in his lab, they can track genealogy too. So what he has in the Southern Sierras, he knows who's related to who's breeding with who's had kits, and kind of survival rates too. So you can kind of track dispersal. And it's a long-term study there, so they can kind of start to see trends of how these foxes move. I think what's really incredible is that a fox that they had detected in really far southern Sierras, we marked again in the SNRF. So you're talking like over 200 miles that this fox is
That's
traveling
new
through
information, right? That's
Yosemite National Park. It's a massive area that these foxes are traveling. And also what they're learning from that is when there's new genetics coming in from populations like the Great Basin, and they're coming and they're providing genetics, which is so important for these foxes because there's so few, and they really risk a lot of inbreeding. So I think the other question about this area is how are they doing? We don't know. We don't have enough information. And do they need support? Do they need potentially help from other genetics, other foxes?
Okay, so I've read the conservation strategy that was, I think, published in Oregon, but all these same folks are involved.
Yeah,
it's like
small fox group.
Right. And one of the potential strategies to help the population was translocating foxes from another population. And to someone like me who's not a biologist, like I see this tiny population, inbreeding is a concern. Like that seems like the only solution. Is that it's not though, because they might be okay. They might like.
I think it's tough. I mean, translocating wildlife has risks, and if it's already a small population from the area that you'll be removing them from,
grabbing them from,
and then bringing them here to an area that they aren't necessarily adapted to, and then hoping that then they'll find each other, and is a lot to ask and expect of wildlife. And there's success stories that I think we all lean to and think like this is the overarching hope. But there's also stories that didn't go so well. And so I think that's where the fox biologists are really considering like, will this help or won't it? But we don't have enough information at this stage to say whether it will or not. And this data will help inform that. They're up at 12,000 feet in the southern Sierras. And there's nothing up there. I mean, there's a lot. It's super diverse. But in terms of like when we go up there and we're like, how does anything live up there?
It's alpine,
very,
barren landscape. So these guys are a holdout. I mean, they're this native population that's been there.
And separated too from the Oregon population and from their southern Sierra population.
There's a Sacramento Valley population too.
Yeah.
So there are lowland native foxes.
Okay, I did not know that until recently. I thought everything in the Sacramento Valley was a fur farm.
And that's where it gets really challenging to talk about.
Right. Someone commented on my Facebook page, like, look up Ben Sachs and UC Davis, and he had this whole study on this native population in the northern part, I guess, of the Sacramento Valley. And
that's who you should get on your show is Ben.
That would be very fun.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
And you keep mentioning Ben and Jen and John. And I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
And, so there's this world.
Yeah.
And all these names are like on that conservation strategy as consultants or authors or whatever it is.
The experts of the red
It's
fox.
like a fox world, which is interesting because I have so many experts chiming in on my Facebook page that know more about foxes than anyone else on the planet.
I think, once you find a species that you're really passionate about, then you deep dive.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's fun as a photographer, as a nobody. I'm not a biologist. I'm not, in that world, but to have this tiny seat at this table and just kind of see the.
I was gonna say now you kind of are though. You're really your work.
I'm the PR guy, I guess, for these foxes.
I mean, when I learned about you, I was like, I wonder if he would be open to sharing where his cameras are, because that would be a possibly really ideal location for us to bring the dogs to. Because your cameras aren't baited either, so you're getting foxes that are naturally walking by. They want, they're going there naturally, and for us as the dog teams, that's what we're trying to find, is where these foxes are naturally moving and what habitat they're utilizing. And when we come to a new place like Lassen and we don't know the ecosystem as well as we might on some of our other studies like the Southern Sierras, then we kind of have to start from scratch. I mean, we have all this data that we're being provided, like past caller data and all that to help guide, and we have all of the all the things we know about the foxes that the dogs have taught us about where to search. But we're kind of starting from square one,
right?
And really hoping that we can get some information that's going to be useful.
Well, it's fun to have something to share, just a little bit of data, whatever I can do to,
And I think we're all like scratching at the, like anything is data for us. Like one GPS point for us. We're like, yeah.
right, let's go there. Yeah.
Just chime in real quick with the scat data. When it amplifies, like Jennifer mentioned, you can get genealogy and if it's a male or female, and if she's pregnant, if kits are related. But you're also going to get the diet. And we can start to see how that changes through the Sierras, which may become much more important as climate is altering, and if there's something happening to their diet. Then we can also see if with the climate, are those lowland populations coming up higher and mixing more. We can start to see are there things that are altering their ability to survive. So are they not necessarily viruses, but things that are making them ill? You can start to look at the stress and see are more people coming to hike up in these high elevation areas? Is that stressing the fox more? And all these different things that are affecting them. So, putting a collar on a fox is great. It gives us a lot of data about that one fox. And getting camera photos is great because we know they're in this area. But the scat really allows us to get a lot of information about what's going on with all of the individuals in that area. And working with the dogs, we can get into areas where maybe there hasn't been a camera photo yet, or we know that the collared foxes aren't going on in here. Does that mean there's another fox that hasn't been collared? So we can start to see, are there more individuals? Or are there, when we're trapping or getting photos, are there, is that more males and less females? Or is there more females and less males? Or are there, less dominant individuals in there that are kind of hidden a bit more? And we can see what's happening there. And since when we're picking up a scat, we know that's a location where a fox has been, we might be able to start to see movement corridors that need to be have to have more protection to ensure that we have that genetic flow from north to south in these different areas that'll help bolster the entire population. So all of that can come together and help protect this species, but maybe also protect the areas they're in as well as other species that they're relying on. So it's not just a one species study necessarily.
It gives you an idea of what else to pay attention to.
Yeah, the whole environment there. And, to relate this all back to humans, we can start to have more predictors of what the climate's doing. And if we start seeing species disappear at these higher elevations, that's a precursor to, okay, we're going to start to have problems of our own as this continues to build. And I feel like most of us are fairly aware now of things that are happening in the climate, flooding and fires and everything, but paying attention to the wild places and the animals in there really gives us a clear view of the future, and how things are changing quickly.
So in terms of the connection you mentioned between the southern and northern populations, and you guys have done some work north of the southern population of these foxes, like Sonora Pass and that kind of thing. That's really fascinating to me because there's this hope, right, that there's individuals moving from the south up this direction. What are the chances that these foxes are meeting each other already and we don't know about it?
I don't know. I mean, when I think about how far that Great Basin fox had to travel to get to the Sonora foxes, and I mean, you're talking highways and interstates and low elevation. I mean, the potential for mortality along that route is extreme. And so then when you think then about the southern extent of the Sierra Nevada red fox meeting back up with their northern brethren, it's intimidating, and I can't say I know enough to really answer that question very well, but it would be more ideal if they had that capacity and if they did it naturally, I think, than if we had to intervene.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So ultimately I think that would be the most ideal scenario, but especially in all the other work that we do, which is the diversity of species, I think we see maybe more firsthand a lot of the alterations that are occurring throughout our landscapes from logging and development. So I don't have a lot of hope that the Southerns could meet with the Northerns. I do think it's exciting though, because the Sonora Pass, which is the core area, the Sonora area, they are north of that, and that was pretty exciting information for a lot of biologists to know that they are moving north and they're in other areas beyond that core.
Right.
So I think, like Heath was saying, identifying those areas and potentially protecting those corridors might allow these foxes to naturally get back up.
Historically, they were connected, right?
Yeah.
Like they think the population was all throughout. How far north is the northernmost detection, you know?
I don't know, actually, the furthest north. I know our furthest north is kind of south of Tahoe. I don't know if there's more north than that. And I think you shared a photo with me, actually, of someone who got a photo of a...
Sonora Pass, and like that wilderness area, is the furthest I've heard of. And,
yeah.
Someone.
It's like the Carson Pass area.
Yeah, Carson Pass. Is that what did I just say?
You said Sonora Pass.
Sonora Pass, yeah. That Mokelumne wilderness
exactly.
is where I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Which is not far from Tahoe.
Yeah.
You know, then you look at like from Tahoe to here. I mean, there's wilderness connecting it all. It's just probably not preferred elevations and those kind of things.
And I think that's some of the questions that when we were in Yosemite National Park they were hoping to answer, because they did used to be there historically. They haven't been there in many years. I think they're getting more detections recently. But where are they preferring if it's not, if nothing looks like Sonora Pass, which is its own unique area, where are the foxes going to go if it's not like that, So that's also what we need to learn about foxes, and I think we have so few left, we don't have a really good idea of the different habitat types that they might use, or even if it's just traveling through and not, I'm going to mate and have a den, here.
I think that one of the things people think is if we protect places like Lassen or Yosemite, these foxes have a spot that they're safe. And we don't necessarily think about genetics so much, and connecting these places. So having connections between the national parks where foxes can move safely is a huge thing, and not just for foxes, but for all species. We think of Yellowstone National Park, I think sometimes it's like a zoo, and those animals are safe there, not thinking that they can only necessarily sometimes breed with, only the animals there. So learning more about connectivity and seeing where we can find areas to protect things or have wildlife overpasses that allow for genetic movement is really important. Or we'll start losing these species when a virus or something comes through and they don't have enough genetic diversity to protect themselves. Right. And we'll see crashes, and we'll have more and more endangered species, which will in turn require more protection and more things that I think most of us don't necessarily want. Like, we want abundant wildlife, so we don't have to worry about endangered species or putting more money into protecting them and keeping public out of places. But
I think that's something people don't understand is especially like in Lassen County, Susanville area, very conservative area, a lot of hunters, a lot of people that are out there all the time, and the worry is all these places are getting shut down. They're just trying to keep the people out, and I think people don't realize that's not the goal at all. That's the goal is to promote the diversity, that will allow people to be in.
Very well, ecological health, that'll then bolster all of these populations, because it's, the foxes don't live in a vacuum, and if we can support one species, like Heath was saying, and then that actually helps this other species, which then is a species that helps this species, then ultimately you have a pretty robust ecosystem. And I think that's the ultimate goal. But I think by the time we learned some of this, well before I was born, but by the time people started realizing, they go, maybe we need to start thinking about this. We didn't have a lot of baseline data, so now we're starting almost from scratch, trying to learn so that then we can, years from now, support. And it's kind of a long game, and that's the frustrating part, I think, for people who want immediate access to an area, to be like, well, I'm here now, and I would really like this opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. And having that kind of patience to be, well, I'd like to see this for my grandkids, maybe.
Yeah. I think the goal is the same. Everybody wants this diverse ecosystem and the wildlife to be healthy, and I think the length of time it takes to understand what's going on, people don't want to wait for that.
And we've seen it. I mean, our work is, I think that's why Heath was saying the dogs are the most tangible part, because so much of the information we learn may not happen for years to come, because first you have to collect it, then you have to analyze it, then you have to collate it, and then potentially publish it, and then from the publishing potential, then you have management plans. And
you gotta it has to be reviewed before it's published. Like, it's a long process, and it takes a while for that to trickle down to changes on the ground. And then by then, things have changed. And
right.
Okay, we've got to reevaluate this.
Yeah.
We know this now, but and I think it's just important that it's not to keep people out. It's to learn how to protect these species with our populations growing.
Right.
And how do we all live together and keep these areas, semi-natural, but obviously with our influence in there. I mean, there's going to be, if it's a national park, there's going to be a lot of visitors, and national park visitors have shot way up. So there's even more visitors now than there were 5 years ago. And thinking about how do we keep this open for people to come and appreciate, but then also have, like I said, areas that connect it, and that might be national forest or BLM land or
do we give that photographer a permit to go set up cameras?
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, that's having the ability to have things like that and have those areas be for hunting and recreation and other things is really important. But what we all have to realize is we're a group of all of us that want to protect that for different reasons, but there's no reason that all of those reasons can't be valuable or viable. It's just, how do we do that together?
Yeah. So what does the next few days, the next week in Lassen, you're out almost every day, hitting the ground, getting samples, like that's the goal, right? As much territory as possible?
Yes. We have priority areas that have been outlined for the dog teams, and we have 4 dog teams with us, and we'll be sending 2 to the wilderness and kind of 2 to the western side, and really focusing on the core red fox habitat in those areas. And so we can't survey the entire national park, although that would be wonderful, but we just really want to focus our efforts on the red fox. And
so I'll probably catch you on my cameras.
I kind of hope so. I'm curious if we'll wander by.
In the neighborhood.
You definitely will.
They're aiming low. Get down there.
If we're doing our job right and we go to these areas, then
and for our boots.
That means we're searching where the red foxes are. And so we're using lots of different information to guide our surveys, and then we're depending on the dog's knowledge of the odor, and so we're guiding them, they're guiding us, and we'll be out for the next 20 days searching Lassen National Park
for fox poo.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's not a huge amount of funding for any of this work, and we have to be as precise as possible as we can on where to look for the foxes. So that's where the team aspect comes in. Is we have to know what habitat is best to get the dogs in, because they have an amazing ability to use their nose much better than we can and pinpoint when we get into an area. And I don't know if you've come across fox cat in the wild.
I don't know if I've come across fox cat. That's the problem. You've probably seen it and didn't know it.
You probably walked by it and not seen it, because it looks just like a little, rock that would be here. It's almost like a little pellet. And so when the dogs find it, I'm just always like, wow.
Yeah.
I would not have seen that in a million years. And the fact that Kate was able to find so much was amazing. But it's hard to see, and a lot of times it'll be in a clump of grass too, and so there's that added
I have captured a photo of a Sierra Nevada red fox peeing, which is probably the first time fox pee in midair. But I have not come across scat and known it, at least.
Maybe we'll get one pooping, and that will be like the shingle off.
Right? I'll call you guys. I won't touch it.
So in addition to that, we're getting up super early to get out there, because as the sun comes up, there's not a lot of shade anywhere, and that's just going to drain the dog's energy and our energy. But we have to maximize the dog's abilities as much as possible. So that's getting out as far as we can out there into the more remote areas, potentially camping out there and staying overnight, so we can stay in those remote areas.
Get up and go, yeah.
Yeah, and it is an intense job. Like, you're going up and down, and you're off trail, which I don't think a lot of people, like, even when people come to work with us, they don't really understand the difference between on trail and off trail. Like,
I think
what it really means. Like, hiking on a trail is
a different animal. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be nice and hard, but when you get off trail, it's a different world, and you can quickly find yourself in dangerous situations, either from exposure or the danger of cliffs and drop-offs, to being really cold, getting caught in a rainstorm or thunderstorm, hypothermia, dehydration, heat exhaustion.
But you see some really cool stuff.
You do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think people think our job is dreamy because we get to hike with our dogs.
Right.
And I know this project in particular probably sounds incredible because we're in a national park. But with the caveat, like Heath was saying, that it's much more challenging than just like a fun day hike. And we have to plan for months ahead to prepare the dogs, to prepare ourselves, especially working in volcanic ecosystems with the pumice, which can be really damaging to dogs' paws. So we have to think about how do we gently prepare them for working at elevation and on really kind of abrasive ground. So there's a lot that we're doing behind the scenes, and I think what most people just hear about are, well, dogs are in national parks.
Right.
They're not supposed to be, and I know that can be frustrating, but also part of our job is managing the fact that we want everyone's experience in the national park to be theirs. And so that's why we're going to, not only for the dog's health and well-being, but get up early and hopefully be out of areas that visitors might go to before they even have to see us. So they get their wilderness experience too. But hopefully with the understanding that what the dogs are doing here is an important job and not just for fun, and that it's ultimately going to lead to potentially encouraging experiences in the future for people to either learn about Sierra Nevada red fox or see one in the wild and be like, I know what that species is now because I've heard about Randy Robbins and the dog teams out there doing red fox work. So
I think the more people see anyone doing work on a species like that, just the education piece is so important. Like people don't know they exist.
They don't. I think that's why I mean it's really exciting to talk to you and that you wanted to speak with us, because sometimes we can feel like our work is in a vacuum, like we go out and we do the work and then we provide the data and then it, like I said, it gets analyzed and all that, but we need a communication component, and that's tough for biologists and scientists when our job is getting out there in the field and we're not connected, you know,
Right.
and we got to get
Right.
the data, but then who's going to share that information? So it is a huge component of supporting wildlife.
People want to help, but don't know. You know, if you don't know a species exists, then.
And I don't think. I mean, the woman I spoke to just yesterday morning in the interpretive center, she was so excited about your work. I was telling you, and she was really proud. She was proud that there's this really special, unique species that lives in Lassen. And I bet, you know, a few years ago, you could wander in the park and no one would know that the Sierra Nevada red fox was here. And so I think even just that is a huge leap, is getting people excited about the fact that there's this really special species here.
Well, hopefully today I'm going to go find one on my camera and it'll be out there.
Yeah.
We'll tell everybody. Well, thank you guys so much. I am thankful you met with me, and hopefully people watching will learn a thing or two and you know, be paying attention. So I can't wait to find out what comes from these next weeks and what new data.
No pressure.
I know, right? But in the next year or so, we'll find some information out, hopefully about this population, and hopefully it's good news.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Group effort.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to meet you guys.